The Bible has much to say about faith. Yet nowhere does it encourage us to be gullible or naive, nor does it condone mental laziness. The Bible trains us to reason on evidence and reach sound conclusions that are based on facts. The Watchtower, November 1st, 2012. It's amazing the stuff that a person will carry into adulthood if you tell it to them when they're a child. A child doesn't have the life experience, and they have to trust everything their parents tell them. Don't touch the stove, don't run out into the street, don't do this, don't do that. And sometimes a child's probably not even old enough to understand really all the reasons why. And very quickly they learn to appreciate that they can trust their parents to tell them the truth. Personally, I was well into my 30s before I began to question the beliefs that had been instilled into me as a child, raised by Jehovah's Witnesses. And I started thinking, what if I was never raised to believe this? What would it take to convince me that this is real? What if I came at it like I was a blank slate and I weighed all the evidence for and against? What would that show me? And when I began to look at it that way, the evidence didn't line up. In fact, it took me in the opposite direction. I went to my parents first and then to my elders, and I was just hoping that maybe I'd overlook something or they could point me in another direction. But what I found instead was that they didn't really care a whole lot about the facts and the evidence. They just kept deflecting that and pointing me in these very emotional directions. So this was the first thing that I was asked, and it kind of shocked me because it didn't really address the issue, and it's a twisting of scripture on top of it. Jesus' disciples did not ask, where else would we go? They said, whom else should we go away to? They were expressing their faith in Jesus. They weren't talking about finding the right organization. I'm not looking for anywhere else. I am not under the impression that there was anything better. I'm just chasing the truth. Your mechanic tells you that your car is broken beyond repair, and you get mad at your mechanic and you tell him, well, are you going to give me another car? Whether or not you have another car to drive has no bearing on whether the car that you're driving currently is safe or dangerous. What actually matters is, what do the facts show? Again, this is just like the previous question. Whether or not you have another hope lined up has absolutely no bearing on whether the hope that you now believe is reliable or completely delusional. What matters is what the facts and evidence are pointing you toward. This is pure 100% emotional reasoning. What does something being satisfying have to do with whether it's true? It's like, it feels good. I like the way it sounds. It makes me feel good when I read about it. So therefore it must be true. But how does wanting to believe something have any bearing on whether that thing is actually true? It's as if witnesses believe that the universe is somehow obligated to give them satisfying answers, to only give them the answers that they want. If it doesn't feel good, then it must be wrong. It's not the job of reality to bend itself to suit your emotional predisposition. It's the job of sentient creatures like you and I to try and discern the nature of reality as it truly exists by examining the evidence, even if the evidence takes us in an uncomfortable direction. This one I was kind of shocked to hear somebody admit. I just don't see how I could have done that. How can I willingly participate in spreading a fraud? There's just no way I was going to spend the rest of my life going door to door lying to people. Think about what I would have been asking people to do to become one of Jehovah's Witnesses. When someone becomes a witness, they're supposed to put aside their personal interests. They're encouraged not to pursue a career or go to a university, but center their mind and focus their lives on the needs and wants of the organization. They're told to give as much money as they can, even if they don't have a lot to give. They may have to participate in shunning, even if it's their own child who gets baptized and later leaves the organization. If they ever need a blood transfusion to save their life, they would have to choose to die instead. There was just no way I could try to bring more people into this belief system when I was unconvinced of it myself. I'd be asking them to sacrifice way too much for something that may or may not be true. Again, this does not address anything. It just encourages you to stick around out of fear. And I decided I couldn't spend the rest of my life pretending to believe something just to keep others happy. So the end result was that I lost pretty much every friend I'd ever made. I lost my sisters. I lost my parents. And as I began building a new life from scratch, what I learned is that it is actually possible to find security and happiness outside the walls of the organization. Ironically, the only people that have mistreated me so far have been my family and the witnesses, who are now forced to shun me and pretend like I don't even exist. The only thing that ever ended up chewing me up and spitting me out was this organization. And now that I've made a life for myself on the outside and I have people that love me unconditionally, I cannot even imagine locking my mind back into a cage, crawling back to that organization in order to live a lie and be surrounded by people that could completely withdraw their affection from me at a moment's notice if I start asking the wrong questions again. The reality for me was that this process of trying to convince myself of something that no longer made sense was just extremely damaging emotionally. I had horrible anxiety problems for several years, depression. I was even suicidal at times. And once I had accepted what the facts were showing, all of that went away. And so the only question that I've been asking myself is, why didn't I leave sooner? That's it for this video. I'd like to hear what you have to say in the comments. And I think the next one I want to do is going to be on the subject of examining your beliefs.